Hey everyone, thanks for joining my video today. In this series, I'm going to show us how to create a free Windows 11 virtual machine using Hyper-V. You might be asking, what is Hyper-V and how do I get it? Well, according to Microsoft, Hyper-V is a virtualization technology and it enables running virtualized computer systems on top of a physical host.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
What does that mean? Well, essentially, we're just going to be using our Windows computer to essentially create another computer on top of it. Um, why might this be helpful? Well, if you're testing on computers and say something goes rogue, the last thing you want to do is reset your actual computer and lose a lot of your files. So by creating a virtual machine, it's going to allow us to create like a dummy device, essentially, where if it goes, you know, if it crashes on us or, we add things that we don't want on it, we can essentially delete it and create a new one. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of the requirements for enabling Hyper-V Manager. As we can see here, we're going to need a Windows 10 or 11 Pro or Enterprise operating system, and we're also going to need a 64-bit processor with the second level address translation, a CPU support for VM monitor mode extension, and lastly, we're going to need a minimum of 4 gigabytes of memory. And just a note here, if you have a Windows 10 or 11 home version, Hyper-V role cannot be installed. So let's take a look really quick and verify that I have the correct version of Windows on my end. So if we go to the search bar and search WinVer and click enter, we can see here that I am running the Windows 11 Pro operating system. So hey, we're good to go there. Cool, let's close this and let's see, how do we enable this? Well, there are a few different methods. You can enable it using PowerShell, enable it with the command prompt, or you can enable it through the settings. So in my case, I'm going to go ahead and use the settings. So let's follow these instructions and get this enabled. So I'm going to search for turn on Windows features on or off and click on here. And here we see Hyper-V is not checkmarked. So let's go ahead and checkmark this. And just a note, before we move forward, we are going to need to reboot this in order for this service to be activated or enabled. So let's click OK. And we can see it's doing its progress. Great, so we can see this message here that we're going to need to reboot our PC to finish the installation. We can go ahead and restart now. Hey everyone, welcome back after the reboot. Let's go ahead and look for Hyper-V Manager. This is going to be the platform that's going to allow us to create that virtual machine. Great, we can see that we have Hyper-V Manager enabled here. And don't worry, there is a lot going on, but I'll keep it pretty simple in order for us to create that free Windows 11 virtual machine. So we can minimize this in the time being. And let's go over to our Edge browser. I'll leave these links for you to see and have these available for you. But we're essentially going to go over to the Microsoft Evaluation Center where we can grab a free Windows 11 Enterprise ISO. And just a note, this is used for testing and training, so it's not a permanent solution, but it's going to be helpful for us to get started to play with. So if we click on download the ISO Windows 11 Enterprise version, we'll get sent over to this screen where you can go and pre-fill some information. And then after you pre-fill that information and click on download now, we'll get directed to this website over here where we can go ahead and choose our language and architect type of ISO that we want to download. In my case, I'm going to download the 64-bit version, and I already did that to save us some time. But essentially, that'll be downloaded, and you can see it on your downloads folder. So hang on to that, and let's head over to our Hyper-V Manager. Here, we're going to want to head on and click on New, and we'll click on Virtual Machine. And here, we can name it something like Windows 11. I'll do this, Windows 11 VM. And you can store this anywhere for location. I'm just going to keep that as default. And we'll want to make sure that we have this selected as generation 2. And in order for us to have a Windows 11 device, we also want to make sure that we have 4 gigabytes assigned to this computer. So we'll click on Next. And for the connection, we can go ahead and use the default switch. Next. And here I'm going to just assign it 65 gigabytes of storage to the disk of the virtual machine. And this is going to be important for us to grab that ISO that we downloaded for Windows 11. So we'll click on the second option, install an operating system from a bootable CD, DVD, ROM. And here we'll want to click on image file and browse. And mine was directed to the downloads folder. So here we go. Here is my ISO. We'll double click on that. And we'll click on next and finish. And it'll create the virtual machine. But there are going to be some things that we need to configure in the settings for us to spin up this virtual machine. So for Windows 11, there are some requirements for us to follow. First, we're going to want to make sure that we have Secure Boot enabled, which it is by default, but we also need to enable the Trusted Platform module. So we can do that by clicking on the radio button. And then we also want to make sure that we have 4 gigabytes of RAM assigned to it. And for the processor, you can go ahead and assign it 2 processors. So once we have that, we can go ahead and click apply. Great, and then we'll click OK. And now we can go ahead and start this virtual machine. And if you right click and click connect, it should open the virtual machine for you. Perfect. Here we go. It's connecting to Windows 11. And then we'll want to press any key to boot from CD or DVD. So I'm just going to press on Control Delete. And I'll click on the black screen and click enter. Perfect, and we'll get directed to this Windows 11 setup. Click on your language and time and currency format that works best for you. The defaults are perfect for me, and the default there is correct for me as well. And we'll do install Windows 11, and we'll want to make sure we agree with everything will be deleted, including files, apps, or settings. And this won't be on your physical device. This is just going to be on the virtual machine. So just a note there. And just getting a few things ready. Cool, and we'll go ahead and read the notice and license terms. Click accept. And here we'll want to make sure that we click on that 65 gigabyte unallocated space. We'll click next. Perfect, and we're ready to install. Click install, and we'll let this run.
2,000 years later.
Perfect. And just like that, we have a Windows 11 virtual machine for free.